And I think in this age when religion so often accompanies the organised official events, whether it's to do with acts of remembrance, which seem to still in this 21st century still be inextricably linked with established religion, that we're going to hear from one of our friends in a much more simple and I think much more universal and very traditional old, if you like, prayer. So let's listen to that.
So this is a prayer from Thich Nhat Hanh, and it's entitled Beloved Mother of All Beings. Dear Mother, wherever there is soil, water, rock or air, you are there, nourishing me and giving me life. You are present in every cell of my body. My physical body is your physical body, and just as the sun and stars are present in you, they are also present in me. You are not outside of me, and I am not outside of you. You are more than just my environment. You are nothing less than myself. I promise to keep the awareness alive that you are always in me, and I am always in you. I promise to be aware that your health and well-being is my own health and well-being. I know I need to keep this awareness alive in me for us both to be peaceful, happy, healthy and strong. But sometimes I forget, Mother Earth. Lost in the confusions and worries of daily life, I forget that my body is your body. And sometimes I even forget that I have a body at all. Unaware of the presence of my body and the beautiful planet around me and within me, I am unable to cherish and celebrate the precious gift of life you have given to me. Dear Mother Earth, it is my deep wish to wake up to the miracle of life. I promise to train myself to be present for myself, my life, and for you in every moment. I know that my true presence is the best gift I can offer you, the one I love.
Thank you for that. And I'm going to pass over to Eckart Weber now, who's going to talk to us for about 15 minutes. And Eckart is from Extinction Rebellion, and he's been so kind as to prepare something to say for us. And after that, we're going to then hear some music. So do stick around for the speech and for the music if you can. And I'll hand over to you now, Eckart. Thank you.
Thank you, Monty. Are you disheartened by the number of people that have turned out? I'm not. I tell you why. This is a historic day, but I'm not disheartened. I find it's going to be an auspicious day, and I'll tell you why. Extinction Rebellion started with fewer people than are standing around here, sprinkled across this big square. There were 6 of them. They were in Stroud. And by now there are hundreds of thousands of XRs across the world. It's the fastest growing social movement in the history of everything. So, on this very auspicious day, I'd like to begin by asking you to bring to mind that lovely flower bed in the lower part of West Park on Victoria Avenue that the parish of St Helier created earlier this year. As you know, the plants and flowers there proclaim, "Votes for women!" Now, when you first saw it, did it cross your mind that those skillful St Helier gardeners should have added the date, 1919? You might have been like, haven't women had the vote for 100 years now? But let's use the omission of the date 1919 as an unintended reminder that we still live in a male-dominated patriarchal society. Despite the enormous progress made in the last 100 years on women's rights, society in general, education and the workplace. For some time now, books and the media have been proclaiming the end of patriarchy. I think that's wishful thinking. I want to ask you something. I want to ask you to think of the most patriarchal, most controlling, most authoritarian male that you know. Can you picture him? He may be your father or your grandfather. He may be your husband or partner, your boss, or any male authority figure. For the men among you, the most difficult patriarch to face is the one that may be an aspect of you yourself. I speak from experience here. That aspect of you that needs to control. Equally, for the women among you, a difficult aspect to face in yourself might be the one that has sometimes colluded with patriarchal power. If you're struggling to identify someone to visualize from your own life or from within you, just think of a well-known and very powerful or very wealthy man. So, are we ready? We're visualizing this man from our life or within ourselves, and now we tell that man to his face, patriarchy is dead. Or, hey Boris, hey Donald, you guys are history, man. In your imagination, how does your archetypal patriarch respond? Does he look away with a scornful and indifferent shrug? Does he look you straight in the eye with an ironic chuckle? Look straight back into the eyes of that patriarch you are visualizing. Hold his gaze for a while. Don't blink. But now look away. Because his gaze can be powerful. Think of it as the gaze of a male Gorgon that can turn you to stone and stop you from acting. Unlike the female Gorgons of Greek mythology, he is not necessarily a monster. He is a human being. And depending on who you are visualizing, his gaze is powerful for any number of reasons. If you're visualizing someone close to you, his gaze might be full of love. That loving gaze might create conflict inside you. Because on the one hand, you want to challenge his power, but your love for this man might stop you from doing that. If you're visualizing a male boss, a man in authority, or someone famous, his gaze might be full of anger, or worse, full of sheer hatred. It's a gaze that may fill you with fear, the gaze of the Gorgon that turns you to stone. What can you do? The next thing I'd like you to do is to imagine that you take your chosen patriarch and place him in the very foreground of a picture. And as you do this, think of the other people here. Only a few, but think of the other people here today doing the same. We're all taking our chosen patriarch and putting him in the very foreground of a huge picture. Can you see it? A long line of men staring at us. Collectively, all those men represent or symbolize the system in which we live. The economic system, political, cultural system, family system. And if the stare of just one of those men is a bit scary, the stare of all of them combined can be overwhelming. You may have feelings of helplessness, frustration, anger, despair. So what do? I recommend you step back. In your imagination, take several paces back from the picture that we've created so that you can now see all of it. And you realize how vast the picture actually is. It's a huge painting. It's the canvas of history. The first thing you notice is that stepping back puts things into perspective. That long line of men in the foreground of the canvas are put into perspective. But what can you see in the rest of the picture? Like a guide in an art gallery, I'd like to point out some of the details. First of all, in the very foreground of the painting, you can see a group of women, 13 or 14 women. The date is 1769. The women are under arrest just down there at the harbour in Jersey. The Viscount has detained them because they were taking wheat from a ship destined for France, because they desperately needed to feed their starving children. Fortunately, they are soon released, because soon after, several hundred more women descend on the Jersey harbour to prevent this or any other ship from sailing to France. And the Lieutenant Governor, called to maintain order with his troops, is persuaded to unload the wheat cargoes for sale on the quay, so that the island women have something to feed to their families. Guys, this is a breakthrough. It's a unique victory for direct action in Jersey, as Nigel has just pointed out. Let me point out very briefly other inspiring and heroic women on our canvas. Nearer to us, on our vast canvas of history, are the women of the American Revolution. Closer still, the women at the time of the French Revolution. And look, there are our suffragettes as well, so close to everyone's heart, and especially close to the heart of Extinction Rebellion, because they were prepared to be arrested for their act of civil disobedience. And see Rosa Parks, Nigel has mentioned her, standing there, or rather sitting on a bus, breaking the law because she's taken a seat reserved for whites in the state of Alabama. And coming closer now to the foreground of our canvas, you can see clearly a large group of women taking hammers to the fighter planes at Greenham Common. And there's Malala. She's now stepped into the canvas. The 14-year-old girl from Pakistan who was shot and wounded by the Taliban for campaigning for girls' education. And there's the hashtag #MeToo movement jostling to get into the picture. And so on and so forth. I need not carry on, because you can populate it with thousands and thousands of heroic and inspiring women that I haven't mentioned. And don't stop there. Fill that canvas of history with people from your own family, mother, grandmother, great-grandmother, the ancestors, those who have loved and nurtured you, guided you, and made you wise. So we've painted a picture. What now? Now we can act. At this point, I'm going to switch my metaphor comparing history to a painting and compare it instead to a global drama. Imagine the canvas of history as a play that is about to begin. I invite you to take up your position downstage right, downstage left, in the very foreground of what was our static picture. Imagine yourself elevated so that you can see the line of patriarchs, but you can also see all those inspirational and heroic women throughout history. When you're ready to take part in this global drama, I invite you to cast yourself in the role of an angel. A male angel, a female angel, or an LGBTQ angel. Not a cutesy angel, as we'll be stepping onto the stage of many nativity plays in a few months' time. Your role is to be a ferocious angel, but one full of love. If you're struggling to think yourself into this rather unusual role, I have a picture to help you. This painting is called Angelos Novos, the New Angel by Paul Klee. Another name for this angel is the Angel of History, a label used by one of the 20th century's great intellectuals, Walter Benjamin, who said this about it. Angelos Novos shows an angel looking as though he is about to move away from something he is fixedly contemplating. His eyes are staring, his mouth is open, his wings are spread. This is how one pictures the angel of history. His face is turned toward the past, Where we perceive a chain of events, he sees one single catastrophe, which keeps piling wreckage upon wreckage and hurls it in front of his feet. The angel would like to stay, awaken the dead, and make whole what has been smashed. But a storm is blowing from paradise. It has got caught in his wings with such violence that the angel can no longer close them. The storm irresistibly propels him into the future, to which his back is turned, while the pile of debris before him grows skyward. This storm is what we call progress. The passage is not easy to understand, and it's been interpreted in many various ways. For me, a storm blowing from paradise is the storm of Mother Nature, the storm of Mother Earth. Or to put it differently, the storm blowing from paradise is what is called the Holocene, the period in the Earth's history when nature was still in perfect balance so that life on Earth could thrive. We, on the other hand, are living in the Anthropocene, what Benjamin, with tragic irony, calls the period of progress. The Anthropocene began with the Industrial Revolution and is the first period in the history of the planet when man, the anthropos, is directly and catastrophically changing the global climate and nature's ecology. Benjamin goes on to say, the storm irresistibly propels the angel of history into the future, to which his back is turned. Try to visualize that. He's looking at history, but he's being blown into the future. This is the crux of the matter for us, if we are to take on the role of angels of history. Benjamin himself was an angel of history, but he was unable to turn around and face the future. In 1940, on the evening before his escape to Spain from German-occupied France, he was betrayed by an informer. He was Jewish. He knew he'd been betrayed, and he knew that the SS were coming for him and that he'd be transported to a concentration camp. He despaired and committed suicide. For the sake of our children and grandchildren, we may not despair. We will not despair, and there is in fact no need to despair, because unlike Benjamin, we are not alone. I've asked you to gaze at the system and the patriarchy that underpins it. I've asked you to be inspired by the heroic women of the past. I now ask you, as an angel of history, to turn to the future. And as you do so, behold that there are many, many angels who are already facing that future. They're crowding out the line of patriarchs, pushing them back on the world stage. And the most inspiring one among them is, of course, Greta Thunberg. She cuts a diminutive figure in front of Donny Boy the Hulk Trump. But she's no longer glaring at him. She's got her back to him, facing the future, because he will be consigned to the dustbin of history. And so will our little dumpling Boris. But before your heart grows too warm with admiration for this extraordinary young woman, remember that she is ferocious. Her world-changing speeches are not only addressed to the UN, the House of Congress, those in power across the globe. Her speeches are also addressed to you and to me, to our generation and to our parents' generation. On the cover of October's GQ magazine, Greta is pointing at you and me and saying, to continue doing your best is no longer good enough. So what are the urgent actions required to take us beyond our best? You need to rebel. You need to assert your right to rebel and act on that right. There is a sacred moral and philosophical basis for the rebellion. The Enlightenment philosopher John Locke said, when the government fails to protect the lives and livelihood of its citizens, as in the case of climate change, the people have a right to rebel. And Locke's predecessor, Thomas Hobbes, said, the obligation of subjects to the sovereign is to last as long and no longer as the power lasteth by which she, the Queen and her government, is able to protect them. Decades, as Nigel has mentioned, decades of ineffective legislation, environmental, legal actions, lobbying, and so on have not lessened the threat to our existence. The threat is worse than ever. The rebellion is therefore the only rational option left. How will we rebel? With love, with ferocious love. On the 14th of September, 2 weeks ago today, Extinction Rebellion Jersey made its declaration of rebellion at every parish hall and at the Staines Chamber. The last words of the declaration are, "We act in peace with ferocious love of this island." Our love is the same ferocious love that drove the 14 Jersey women to rebel in 1769 so that they could feed their children. Our love is the same ferocious love that every parent here and across the island has for their children. Every parent, and especially every mother, will do anything to protect and defend her children. Will you be able to look at your children, to look them in the eye, and the eye of your grandchildren, and say, as an angel of history, I did what I could? Thank you.
Okay, can I say a big thank you to Eckart for that, what I thought was a wonderful and profound speech that he's just given. And there's a lot for us to think about, a lot for us to take in. And I know it's been recorded by XR as well, so that will be available for people to re-watch, re-listen to, and for others to see and listen to for the first time.